Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel. Welcome to another video, and it's from the living room. If you've been long enough with the channel, then you know when I'm here, we're gonna talk about business, game business. I'm just gonna keep it light today a little bit because sorry for the summary outfit, it's extremely hot in the Netherlands right now. It's currently 27.5 degrees in the living room. Up in my office, we're touching the 30. Climate. I mean, let's not go into that discussion because I don't think there's any discussion. Climate change is real. Let's talk about games. All right, let's talk about the first topic, and this is going to be a little fun topic. Like I said, the video is going to be light. Indie game developers. Indie, what does it really mean? There was a discussion going on this week, 2 weeks ago for you, on Twitter and other forums, and apparently Diving David, that game about Dave diving, or David, I think it started there, not sure, but apparently it's called an indie game, but the company behind it is like big, huge amount of money. And the discussion, I think this is a yearly discussion. Is it still an indie game, and what exactly makes an indie game? To be honest, when I started creating games in 2004, for the first couple of months when people told me, oh, you're a cool indie game developer, and yes, people called me cool back then, I honestly thought it had to do with India, because this was before smartphones and Nokias and Sony and normal phones, and a lot of game players in those days came from India. So I thought, indie game developer, they probably think I'm from India as well, but I'm as white can be. So they'll figure it out, but eventually I figured it out that indie meant independent game developer. And from that point on, I guess I called myself an indie game developer. And now it's always been a marketing term type thing to use to, at first, pretty much distinguish the big production, the big games, the big studios from the small hobbyist game developer trying to make a living or earn money from their games. So it's always been some sort of marketing term. And sorry, my cats are playing. They're awake in this heat. Insane, but that's a cat. So it's a marketing term, and right now I think it's overused. And of course, big companies are now trying to use it, and they have been trying to use it for a couple of years now. And why not? It's marketing, and that's pretty much what marketing does. And originally, the distinction was very simple. If you're on like a very low budget or doing it in off hours from a normal day job, then you're pretty much an independent game developer. And if you have a whole studio and people and a lot of financing behind you, you're not really an independent game developer, for the simple reason that a lot of money is being put into those games and a lot of money has to be taken out of those games or earned with those games. So money makes the decisions, and people, or the person who is giving you the money or has the money, is really eager to make back that money. So those people want to say in what the game is going to be, in what direction, and what's not, and what is going to be used. And that's pretty much the only difference in why an independent game is pretty much where the creative person has all the say for the game or about the game and what it's going to be. And in the early days, it was very distinct difference. An indie game, because there was so little money going in, often was a little quirky, a little different, a little weird, a little on edge, or trying something new that wasn't done before, for the simple reason that if it failed, there was not a huge loss. The developer or the people behind it were just enjoying themselves making the game, had no expectations of earning back all that money, so they could pretty much do what they wanted. The bigger games, the AAA studios, I mean, modern games, we're talking about $200 million, $500 million just to create the game, and then at least that same amount to market that game. You don't want to take risks on that. Of course, every now and then people will take a little risk or take a proven game idea and concept and tweak it here and there. That's a low risk, but still a little risky. And if it fails, there's a lot of money lost. So you just can't take those risks. And that's pretty much the distinction between an indie game and a bigger studio game. the risk. But even then, there are indie games that are simple platformers. I created a couple of those. They're still indie games, but they're not really risky, because at certain decades ago, platform games were always good. Everybody played them, everybody knew them. Right now for AAA studios, it's the open world, it's the shooters. Those are very safe things to go, but the first shooter was Wolfenstein and Doom and games like that, created by a very indie company that then grew into $1 million AAA studio. And I think there's gonna be an interesting little step to my second topic for this week's video: AAA and mid-size studios. Hey, Judy. All right, so you can make distinction between indie and AAA studio games, and a lot of indie game developers somehow make indie game development a romantic thing, a notion that, yeah, I'm doing this all on my own, no budget, I don't want to mess with publishers and all that. I'm doing it on my own and creating a cool game. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. But honestly, it's also a bit silly and stupid in these days, because you're just pitching yourself against so much quality out there that is getting funding. And it doesn't mean you're suddenly not an indie game developer if you get a publisher or funding. I've worked with a publisher before. They gave me funding, they gave me extra resources to add voice actors and extra art and extra music and things like that. But I was still in control of the whole game and its identity and what it was and what went into the game and what didn't went into the game. And even now, Regulator City, one of the games I'm working on, is funded by a funding company. And they just gave me money and said, do what you want with it, just make sure we make back that money and then some. So pretty much still independent. I'm the one making the decisions, but I have funding behind me, which just makes it a lot easier to work on my games. So if you're an indie game developer, that doesn't mean you can't have a lot of money behind you or a big company behind you. Honestly, it's just a marketing term. So if you come to terms with that, you can start ignoring the whole term indie game developer. You can of course use it for your own marketing, but I think these days it's not as clear anymore as to what is an indie game developer and what is a big studio. And a lot of indie game developers moved into AA studios, I guess, or mid-sized teams, or whatever you want to call it. And this is where I'm currently, in the last couple of months, see a lot of companies either sell themselves to bigger companies, cashing in and leaving, going bankrupt, just ending production completely, calling it quits, which is pretty much same as bankrupt, except you don't have any, you can still pay everybody and you have no open accounts anywhere, so you just quit and stop and start do something else. And of course, we've also seen like the Embracer group, I think behind Nordic, THQ Nordic, and a couple of others. They've been letting some of their smaller, but for us solo or small team game developers, bigger studios, folded. They're gone and we don't need you anymore. So a lot of things are happening in game development land and world. And on one hand, it's scary, because it's business, and in business, if something happens, not everybody can deal with that. But on the other hand, I personally like it and want to see where this goes, because of course, when one company falls or drops or stops developing games, there's room and space for other companies to move in. And I'm not saying that I'm going to grow bigger and hire people and fill that gap, but there's always going to be movement in the game business, and that's an interesting thing to see. And I think that's going to bring me to the third topic of this video, subscription models. All right, subscription models. I think I mentioned that on this channel a couple of times, and I've been very vocal about it here and there in other social media things. I don't think they work. I don't think they're very good for the business long term. And it's been interesting to see that certain, there are Xbox Game Pass, Apple Arcade. We now have Netflix doing its thing, which is also on one hand cool, but on the other hand maybe worrying a bit, seeing how they treated movies and series and all that. I'm not sure how it works. Of course, we have on the other spectrum Spotify, nothing to do with games, but look how they are operating, and that a lot of musicians, upcoming musicians have a lot of stuff to gain from Spotify, but existing musicians are they say they are losing money on their music. Anyway, subscription models are difficult. I don't think they will survive long term. I've seen them come and go over the last couple of decades that I've been creating games. I've seen them come from mobile. I've seen them come on smartphones. None of those really lasted long. Of course, those subscriptions were done by smaller companies, not by Microsoft, which has billions to spend on stuff, and then even if it fails, we'll throw another few billions onto it. Maybe we were wrong. These were little companies, so they didn't have as much money to spend on it, and once it started failing, they had to get out of it. Of course, game developers were on the terrible end of that, because you submit your games to it for free. People start playing those games and you'll have to get revenue from that, a tiny slice of revenue. But if the company in between falls, then these free games are still out there for a while usually, but no money is coming to developers. So developers are always losing out on money, no matter, even if the subscription model works and exists and lasts longer, you're losing money. It has been interesting for bigger publishers and bigger developers because there were deals there. Microsoft would pay or would give certain advances or other stuff to publishers, developers, usually publishers, then hopefully developers. Some money was there offered, and then it would be a deal to exclusively have them on their Game Pass, or Apple would do that for their arcade. But these deals, from what I hear and read, are becoming a lot less, pretty much. That's it. They're not as high as they used to be. So if you were gambling or counting on maybe getting into a subscription model, because then there would be a bag of money no matter what the game did, it's short-sighted. It's business, of course. You would have that bag of money, which is great, but long term, I think a subscription model will destroy game development business. It won't be good for all game companies. There is just a lot less money coming towards the game developer, but gamers are getting used to having free games in their subscription model, so they're not gonna buy all the other games out of that subscription model if they can get new games, hit games that have gotten a nice deal for free in a subscription model. It just doesn't make sense, and still companies are trying it. And of course, if Microsoft would now come to me with a big bag of money and ask me for one or two or all my games in a subscription model in some sort of deal, if the bag is big enough, I'll take it and I'll be hypocritical about it. But long term, I think it's failing, and I now notice that certain publishers were betting on that and are now noticing that money isn't coming for their project or the developer they signed, and that's worrying because now they have to do a different path and find a different path, and that's of course again thrilling because they have to find other solutions to make money, and that hopefully opens up new opportunities and new things that maybe smaller developers like me can lift on or move in the same direction or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the game business world, and if you're just in it for game development, that's great. But as I explained on this channel a lot of times, it's for me, it's full-time job. It's business is interesting, and I kind of like following what's going on in everything because, well, it's part of my business and I need to know where to move with my own games and company. And that's it for this week's video. Thanks for watching. These videos, I probably gave it an interesting subject title. From the living room are usually about business, and they are here to hopefully attract new viewers and subscribers to the channel. So if you're new, subscribe, comment, link, all that stuff. There are many game developer channels out there that give you information, but it's not based on experience. I try to just give you the experience I have and talk about that and talk from knowledge and not just from reading facts in an article or anything. So I hope that's informative and gives it a little extra on this channel. Weekly videos every Thursday. And next week, not sure what we're gonna do. I'm very hard at work on both Gauntlet of Power and Regulated City, two of the games I'm working on. Both games there's demos available, check the description below. There's just so much new stuff happening on both games. It's a bit chaotic, but it's in a good way. So make sure to check those games out, and of course drop on the Discord. The Ori, the bot I've been working on, is completely back, fully operational again. We have experience point, we have leveling up, we have a lot of fun stuff happening. So yeah, come hang out on the Discord. Thanks for watching this video. There will be a little bit extra after this because a lot of bloopers and mistakes, and I thought it would be funny to also show those. So see you next week. Bye. I'm out of words, to be honest. Next week I'm probably, I don't have no idea, but all right. And I think we're gonna end the video over there. But yeah, this is going great. Again, let's do it again. Blooper time. We're gonna add some bloopers. This is a blooper. All right. And I think that's where we're gonna end. Oh my God, this is, yeah.